Okay, today we are going to make this fleece neck warmer like I promised earlier in the week. It's not complicated, it's easy, so please don't be intimidated. So we'll go step by step. Now this is the material we're going to be using for our scarf today. The top layer is a cotton and the back layer is fleece, and the reason I put a fleece or something like that on the back layer is because it's going to be what's next to your neck and it's going to be soft and warm. So I've cut these two pieces of fabric 10 inches wide and 33 inches long, and so I have just sewn them together at the top up here right across the width of it. And now I'm going to lay it out on the ironing board, and I'm going to pin it at several places down the middle to make sure that this doesn't lose its shape while I'm sewing it, because the fleece is stretchy, and so it'll stretch a little bit as you sew. So I'm just going to put just a few pins right down the center, making sure that this is laying flat all the way down. And putting those pins down the center instead of on the edges means you can leave them in there while you're sewing, and you don't have to worry about sewing over it and breaking your needle. So that should be plenty. And now we're just going to take it to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew all the way down both long sides. Remember, we've already sewn across the top, and we're going to leave this end open for turning. So today we are going to be sewing this brown fleece neck warmer. So I've got brown thread on my machine. I also have matching brown thread in my bobbin. Now when you're sewing fleece or anything that is stretchy, you need to use a stretch stitch. If you use just a plain straight stitch, when that fleece stretches, it's going to pop your stitches out. So first of all, it's important to use a good thread, a good polyester thread, so that it doesn't break easily. And then on my machine, the stretch stitch that I like to use is just a small zigzag. So I'm going to put mine on number 3, which is the zigzag stitch. I'm going to put the width of the zigzag on 0.5 because I want just barely a zigzag, and then I'm going to put the length of the stitch on 2.5. So now we've already got our one top sewn, so I've got it pinned so that it doesn't lose its shape while I'm sewing. So we are just going to sew down the two long sides and leave the other end piece open. So now we have our scarf sewn with right sides together, up both long sides and across the top. And see, with these pins in place in the middle, it kept it right where it was supposed to be, so it didn't stretch. So we're going to take the pins out now, and we're going to turn it wrong side out, or right side out. But before we do that, I am going to trim these corners because I don't want all of this bulk in these corners when I turn it. So I'm just going to cut the corner off on each side. Like that. And I'm going to cut part of this top part off too, because that's where the selvage of that fleece was, and it's rolled under and it's going to be really thick. So I'm going to cut that part off too. Now you could overcast these seams if you're worried about them coming out, or you could serge it, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and turn our fabric right side out. And I'm going to take my finger and go up in those corners and make a good crisp corner. Now that did come out right there where I clipped it, so I'm going to have to go back and stitch that. but I'll probably just stitch it across. I'll top stitch it, making sure that's turned in. So let's get our other corner turned out. And now is where it's important to have your iron. Your iron is your best friend when you're sewing. So I am going to lay this out, and I'm going to take my steam iron. I'm going to make sure it's on steam, and I'm going to press down all of those seams. And I'm pressing on the cotton side because sometimes if you have your iron a little bit too hot and you press on fleece, it'll make shiny spots in it. So I'm just going to make sure that I press under that corner right there where I'm going to be top stitching. And I'm going to iron down all of the seams on those 3 sides that we have stitched. So now we have our scarf ironed. All of the seams are ironed. I've top stitched that top side and got that little place where I missed the stitching on it. So now I'm going to just turn it in on the bottom about a ½ inch or so. And I will iron that in place so that it stays turned in like that. Get you up here where you can see it. So I've just turned in both layers right here on that end that hasn't been stitched yet. So make sure you got a good crisp finish there. And now we're just going to go to the sewing machine and we're going to top stitch across this bottom just like we did at the top. So now what we have is, it was started out as 10 by 33 and with about a ½ inch seam allowance all around. It's going to turn out to be about 9 by 32 and it's finished. We just put the right sides together and sewed it all the way around. Now, this is the time to decide where you want to put your snap. And it seems complicated, but it's so easy. All you do is lay this scarf out like it was going to be draped around your neck, like that. All right, you're going to take this wide end and you're going to match it up with this long side. So there again, that's the way it would be draped around your neck. So you're going to match up this corner with this corner, just like that, and pin it right there so that you know that's where you want that to be. Now, I like to turn down part of this side so that it has a contrast, and this is where I would put my button. So if you do that, right there is where you want your snap so that this turns down. So you would put a pin on the top where you want your snap, and then on the layer underneath lined up with that pin. So when I turn this down, the top snap will be here and the bottom snap will be there.